All right, welcome to episode 26 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez along with Miles Porter. How we doing today, man?
Hey, doing good. I'm feeling pretty happy that I saw Sister Jean throw out the first pitch the other day at Wrigley. That just makes me happy because that's awesome. That's my highlight of the week. So doing good.
Dude, 103.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Like I can't even that's crazy. And you know what the I don't know if you saw this, but it came out this morning actually. They have Sister Jean striking out Javi Baez.
Oh, jeez.
It was the pitching ninja. The pitching ninja put it together. Rob Friedman, I believe his name. He put it together, and it like Sister Jean throwing it, and Baez like swinging like over it like a breaking ball. Oh man,
Oh,
they
I
did
gotta
them
see that. That's
bogus. I know,
amazing.
I know.
Realistic
Uh,
too.
I know. Hey, bro, her pitch had some drop on it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So there you go.
yeah.
But no, yeah. So, we'll start off this week by talking about the top story in Chicago right now, man. When it comes to baseball, and that is the Chicago White Sox have been eliminated from postseason contention. They've and even to up to right now, man, it's just all been downhill. They're on a 7-game losing streak after last night's loss to Minnesota. The way I see it, they took that season is over thing a little too seriously because even when they got swept by Cleveland, they still had a chance, I guess, mathematically when it came to the wild card or when it came to the Central. All of us, they went from being down in the division by like 4 games, to now I mean, obviously the division's over, but they were down 10 games like earlier this week. So
Yeah.
it's pretty bad. But what are your initial thoughts when for the White Sox, their season officially? We talked about it all season, right? We talked when are the Sox going to get going? When are they going to get going? And they kind of did get going, especially like
Yeah.
at the end of August, early this month. They did get a little bit of a streak going, a little bit of
Hmm.
some momentum. But
Hmm.
Cleveland never lost, and when it came down to it, Cleveland beat the Sox when it mattered most.
Yeah, kind of going. Yeah, it's so unfortunate. You know the White Sox. You know Sox fans are just like over it when my uncle, who's like one of the biggest White Sox fans that I know, who talks trash to me every time I see him.
Mm.
Every time, and he might be listening to this. I love him so much, and whenever he sees me, he is talking. He's the biggest Sox fan ever. So to see him like kind of just be like, I don't know what to say. That's how you know this is a different time. Look, going back to what I talked about earlier in September is like it's a now or never situation for them. They did have that stretch of games where they were winning and they were, where it looked like they were starting to get some momentum going. Um, then things just kind of fell off. They just dropped off the edge of the world. Um, I said you pretty much got to win every game going forward because I never saw the Guardians slowing down. Once they pretty much took that lead, it looks like they ran with it and they felt good about themselves in that division. So, I just think the White Sox just had so many issues this year. And so many. Oh gosh, this is a team that's they're very defeated right now, and you can see it when they're playing. I mean, you can look back to last night. What I think it was 2 hits that they had. Um, I this it's really, and I'm always going to say this. I'm gonna stick by it. It's not a talent thing right now with them. It's just a mentality. I think mentally they're just defeated. They're just trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Why did things go so bad this year? I think there's a lot of fingers that they could point at. Um, I hope people aren't just pointing their fingers at Larusa. I really hope not. When he's working with generally the same roster that he had last year, he has a lot to do with it in terms of leadership and putting together lineups and making certain moves. But also, we got to hold some of these players accountable who are supposed to go out on the field and perform and execute and do their jobs. Um, that didn't happen. That didn't happen with a couple of players on this team this year, and injuries as well. It's a bummer. I just think that they're mentally defeated, and for a team that we had very high hopes for as Chicago fans, this is shocking, and I think in the offseason there's going to be a lot of reevaluating that they have to do. They have to do. There's no reason for a team with this kind of roster to ever not have 90 wins at this point in the year. I don't care what division you're in. This is a very talented baseball team that just lost their way. So, hopefully certain things are addressed in the offseason, but this is a bummer. I don't care if you're a Cubs fan or a Sox fan. Chicago at the end of the day, this is just a bummer.
Yeah, and I think it's just the way it happened too. That they kind of like after having a great start to the month, they had this huge series against Cleveland, and it was their chance, to like really um solidify, trying to come back in this division, and they couldn't do it, and they got swept against the Guardians last week. And going into that series too, the first game really felt like a postseason series, and it was back and forth. It was a close game. They went into extras. The Sox even scored off Class A, but Cleveland was able to still come out with the win on that one. And then after that, it was like I said, all downhill from there. I mean, they lost game 2, 8-2. It's really when the downward spiral began. Tristan McKenzie struck out 13 Sox. Then game 3, Shane Bieber took down the Sox 7+ innings, allowing 2 runs. He beats Cueto in the 4-2 loss. And then they that's how they completed the sweep. And then the Sox went to Detroit, and then again lost all 3. But going back to that Cleveland series, I mean, it showed the difference between both teams, and it's the pitching, man. It just is. And as much as that first game was a little bit shaky for both teams pitching wise or whatever, I think the Guardians really in game 2 and 3 were like, hey, here's Bieber, here's McKenzie, have at it. And they, went off and did what they had to do with that. I think that's what a lot of people talked about when the difference with the Sox and the Guardians was the starting pitching and just the pitching in general, because the Sox bullpen really faltered a lot this season, had a lot of bumps in the road. And I mean, for example, even, a game against, I believe it was the Tigers when they game 3 against the Tigers. Moncada hit a home run in that game, and they were up for a while, but Kendall Graveman gave up 3 runs late. So I think that's what's been the difference so far. But really, for you, what did you see from the Cleveland Guardians? Not only in that series, but what do you think, in your opinion, sets them apart besides the pitching? Like, what else do they have that kind of sets them apart? A lot of people, let's face it, a lot of people do not take a team from the Central seriously. I think the team that they take the most serious in any Central, really, would be AL or NL, is the Cardinals. I think people look at them and see a more complete team, regardless of the division and how weak it is. But in your eyes, what sets Cleveland apart from the rest?
Oh my gosh, I think right now just very very motivated, very confident. And I look at that series between the Sox and the Guardians. Um, Timely hitting. I think there's a lot of timely hitting on that team. At least that's what I saw. Especially specifically, I'm looking at it all the notes here. Game 3, pretty close game if you ask me. 4-2 loss. Um, Jose Ramirez with a sac fly. Andres Jimenez with an RBI bunt. I mean, it's just you they also understand how their lineup dynamic works as well. This isn't a team that's exactly has a lot of home run hitters, but they're a very fast, nimble team. If you look at a lot of players in this lineup, they know how to move. They also hustle. You put those two things together, I don't care who you're playing, these are going to be hard outs. So they're playing small ball. They know when to get the ball in the air and they have to. Jose Ramirez, he's just a player who I look at who to this day, and I'm always going to say it, I still don't think he's talked about enough. I still don't think he is, and he's always been one of my favorite players to watch. Just a timely hitting, man. It's just they're and on top of that, you add the pitching as well. They're like one of those teams that just have really caught fire and they understand their dynamic as a ball club. So I think that is what sets them apart from yeah, I don't think not only the White Sox, but I think even going into the playoffs, your regular season record, who gives a crap?
Mhm.
It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. We saw what happened with the Braves last year. The Guardians might kind of play as not as a Cinderella team, but as a team that people were kind of overlooking, and they made some teams work for it. And I'm not saying that they are going to do that, but they are playing with a lot of momentum and they understand the dynamic right now. And teams that understand themselves very well usually end up having a lot of success because they know what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So when I look at the Guardians, this is very motivated baseball, and they are playing very, very smart baseball.
No, yeah, I mean, you nailed it right there. I mean, they do understand their like the way they play baseball, and it
Mhm.
worked all season long, and they
Yeah.
did it. And look, the thing is too is they have guys that a lot of people, you know, uh, not necessarily don't know, but they don't know much of their game. And when it comes to Stephen Kwan or when it comes to Miles Straw and Naylor, Josh Naylor, so it's those guys that have really been gritty all season for them and been able to help them, string out some wins and just win when it matters. And they credit to Cleveland. Like regardless, as much as we know, I even said it before of how weak the divisions are in the Central. Look, at the end of the day, they're in the postseason. Anything can happen, right? And I think that's what comes down to it. And their pitching is talented enough to win a series in the playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's the way I look at it in the sense of the Cardinals. As I said before, the Cardinals have the best. I think they have the best team in the central, in the central division, either league. And so I know that, everyone, the divisions are weak, but I think they either both of these teams could go out and surprise people and, make an LCS run or something like that. I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised just because that's baseball, right? And especially in
Yeah.
October, you throw out all the numbers, you throw out everything. It's and it always comes down to pitching. So if you can go out there and have a rotation that has Bieber, that has McKenzie, and Quantrill, so it's like they'll definitely have an opportunity to go far in the playoffs. And I believe as of right now, they would face the Mariners, I believe. But yeah, I want to check it out actually. But I think, look, I believe if they go into the second round, they would face the Yankees. So that might that might be a rough road in general. Um, yeah. So okay, yeah. So if the postseason started today, Cleveland would face Seattle. It would be the 3 Cleveland facing the 6 Seattle, and then the winner of that faces the Yankees. So that that would be it's a scary road for them. But I would like to see me personally, and again we'll get to this in our postseason picture, but really as a sneak peek to mine, what I want would be Seattle facing the Yankees. I think that'd be pretty cool if J Rod, obviously, hopefully J Rod's healthy and all. But, yeah, staying more on the White Sox, I also did wanna say that, I'm not sure if you saw, Miguel Cairo's, comments, talking about the embarrassing play all that. I think, uh, he's still, you know, as Tony La Russa isn't gonna return for the rest of the season, they already announced that. Um, if Miguel, Guido's like if he stays, for next year, if like they end up getting rid of La Russa, um, then I feel like Guido would be a great replacement. Um, but who knows what I mean, there's plenty of options. Don Mattingly is gonna leave the Marlins. I wouldn't, leave that off the table either. Um, but yeah, I mean, the Sox, unfortunately went downhill and it hasn't stopped then, there. So kind of what do you think the Sox will do? Say, obviously, and again, we'll have another offseason show to kind of run down everything that we think is going to happen. But what do you see as moves that are not necessarily going to happen, but the moves that should happen besides a managerial role for the Sox? Like, what do you think they need the most?
I think you have to address some issues when it comes to the catching position. Um, I think Sebi Zavala is very solid behind the plate. But when you look at him and Yasmani Grandal, there's not a lot of offensive production there, which is okay. I think they make up for it in other spots, but I think it's a team that can. I don't know. I think it's okay to move some guys around. Maybe think about keeping AJ Pollock around. I think in his time here, I think he's been pretty solid for
Hmm.
for his age, and offensively. I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. I'm not expecting him to go out and pop 30 a year, but for what he's done, I'm fine with it. I think defensively he's very solid as well. Um, in terms of the manager, I really do like Miguel Cairo. I kind of like that he is being hard on his team in a public way. It kind of lets Sox fans know, hey, we got a manager right now that kind of that's trying to light a fire under these guys. And it kind of reminds me of Ozzie Gain a little bit, if I'm to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
not playing up to your standard and having, a manager who's holding you accountable. That I like that. And if he's not the guy, and they decide to bring in Don Mattingly, I think that's an okay. I think that's a fine move as well. I keep hearing Yankees fans talk about how they want Mattingly to be their bench coach and all that, but I think Mattingly's going to be a manager somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think honestly, between him and Mattingly, I think those are great options. I think maybe going to address some things with the pitching. But if there's one thing I do know for sure, let Tony retire in peace. Um, don't give him a reason to come back. It's not his fault, but I think he is. This is something that should have been addressed a while ago. It worked last year. I think that's why he stuck around this year, and also everything with Reinsdorf. But I think there's options out there. I think the White Sox still have very very good options to work with, and it's just a matter of leadership, and that's just what they got to address.
Yeah, and I think yeah, they definitely do have to, shore up the catching and do stuff like that. I think one thing that stood out for me, especially this week when looking at it, I saw somebody tweet out that the White Sox had they've had, I believe, 6 different second basemen starting on opening day the last 6 seasons. Um, I mean, that's crazy to me, and it's going back to 2017.
Pick
Um,
one, jeez.
yeah, yeah. So maybe go out there and get a second baseman and get somebody who can play second base. Excuse me. Go out there and get someone who can play second base, and maybe that might be one of the holes that kind of helps them out, especially with the type of guys that are going to be available, guys that star shortstops that maybe they could play second base. Who knows? I'm not saying they're going to go out there and get Trey Turner, but they can maybe get someone close to that caliber that can go from shortstop to second or something like that. But they definitely need to find someone that's just going to be there all season. And I mean, they've had it rough regardless. And again, you can't all put it on injuries, but they did have it rough in the sense of injuries all season with whether it be Lance Lynn, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert. I feel like Luis Robert was barely played. um so yeah, it was a rough go, and we'll get into more of the Sox when we talk to Chris Pennant and Gabe Wilkins. They're going to come on next week and talk more about the Sox and preview also the postseason. So yeah, that'll do it for the Sox. They have 2 more versus Minnesota. Then they play 3 versus San Diego, and then 3 versus Minnesota. So they can play the Sox could play spoiler against the Padres if they can able to beat them 2 out of 3 or something like that. So because the Padres are still in the hunt in the wild card. Moving over to the Cubs, they're 68 and 86. They had a good week. They excuse me, they won a series against the Miami Marlins 2 out of 3. Then they beat the Pirates 3 out of 4. They won 6 of their last 7. And hey, like I said last show, I said the road to 70, baby. You know, just win 70 games as a nice consolation, and they're answering the call. They're just 2. Their magic number to 70 wins is 2. So if they can just get to 70, it'll make you feel better. And you know what? They can easily go out there and win like 73, 74 games now. So with the way the schedule is and the way things are looking. So hopefully that happens. In the series against the Marlins, Wade Miley, they scored 3 runs off of him early, and they ended up blowing out the Cubs 10-3. But the Cubs ended up coming back, winning game 2 and 3. Bodie delivered in game 2. He had a home run. He was involved in both the runs that were scored for the Cubs. They won 2-1. Then game 3, the three run 8th inning leads to comeback. Keegan Thompson closed out the game in a 3-inning outing. I think really liked Keegan Thompson in that, in that position of like coming in, closing out the game like that. You never know. Could be could be a bullpen arm if things happen right for the rotation this offseason. Then Wisniewski, continues to thrive, man. 6 1/3, 2 earned runs, 6 Ks. They had that immaculate inning. Adrian Sampson again does his thing against the Pirates. 6 innings, 1 earned run. The errors lead to a 6-0 shutout in game 3, but the Cubs were able to bounce back in game 4. Wisdom goes deep for his second consecutive 25 homer season. So that was cool to see. And then, of course, last night against the Phillies, we're recording this on on a Wednesday. On Tuesday night, the Cubs opened up their series against the Phillies, who are fighting for, again, for a postseason spot. Morel homered, and Stroman continued to have his solid second half of the season. Uh, you know what? The With the Cubs, this in the second half, it's really actually been their pitching. And I saw a stat too where it said that the Cubs had the third best ERA in the second half, and they've been playing 500 ball. So um, what did you see this week when it came to, guys like Wisniewski, Sampson? Like, what were some of the bright spots of this week where the Cubs again had everything go their way?
Gosh, this is it's kind of the opposite of our boys on the South Side. They're
Hmm.
playing very, very motivated, very confident. I'm seeing a lot of learning going on. I've seen with this pitching staff, very young, not too experienced, but they are not afraid to attack hitters. They're going right at guys. I know, Assad has still been getting hit around a little bit. He's been struggling a little bit since that one very solid start he had at Wrigley. But you look at this ball club, that there's so many people in the bullpen out of the rotation who are just still trying to kind of prove themselves in the MLB. So I think they understand that. I think a lot of these pitchers, a lot of these players know where this team is headed. I love it. I love it. And really, I think Wisniewski. I think this what's nasty. This dude is so nasty. So I'm hoping, that they continue to develop him. I think he's someone who we keep down the line. Um, I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. Like you said, the pitching has really been what's been holding this team at least at around 500 ball, and third best ERA in the major league since the break. There's a lot of good things to look forward to, and because everyone is this is a very young team, they do things right. It only gets better from there. So I think there's a lot to look forward to from a pitching aspects. All you do is continue to build on it and make sure that these hitters are able to catch up as well.
Yeah, and it's exactly the kind of like what Stroman was saying this week too. Is he's gonna be a big part in trying to recruit guys, and I think this again, the way that they pitched, is just another reason to get guys to come over here. And again, hey, look, and we talked about it a little bit, I believe, last episode of just talks already. Like the season hasn't even ended, and there's already people talking about names attached to the Cubs, whether it be Rodon, whether it be Trey Turner, stuff like that. So, and again, murmurs continue to reveal that the Cubs are going to be big spenders, and they're going to go out there, maybe Correa, maybe Turner, to show that they're ready to contend sooner rather than later. So, um, yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be something to watch out. The Cubs are gonna be one of those teams to watch in the offseason to see what they do. Same with the teams like the Giants that had rough seasons this year, but they're looking to compete, whether it be next year or the year after that. So it'll be something to watch out for sure. Nico Horner and Wilson Contreras came back. Good to see Contreras back. I mean, look, he's gonna probably play. Most likely, will play his last. You're gonna like you said, you're gonna be there on Sunday.
Yeah,
You might see Contreras' last game at Wrigley in a Cubs uniform. So,
cry like a baby
um,
too.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, he said he's not ruling out taking the qualifying offer. He said that, he's not going to say no, not going to say no to that yet. I'm assuming though he's going to leave because he's going to probably get more money, annual value from someone else. But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, I mean, kind of walk me. How about this? Since this might be for sure his last week with the Cubs, now almost officially, now like the trade deadline. Uh, yeah, how do you feel about that? And also just kind of run down like what. Well, you might have said this before, but what's your favorite Contreras moment, man,
Oh gosh.
or one of them at
Ugh.
least, because there's too
No,
many.
dude. Listen, if this, I'm gonna keep it very straightforward. If he is not a Chicago Cub in 2023, shame on the ownership. Shame on them. There's so much value in having a player like this in terms of leadership, in terms of experience, what he does for players around him, how much of an elite catcher he is with his arm behind the plate and a solid bat in a time where catchers don't hit the ball well. You're gonna look at me and tell me that you wanna ship him off, bring in younger. That's fine. I understand that aspect. Point me to a catcher that's ready in our system. I don't because I don't think there is one right now. And I think we do have a lot of great young talent able to come out next year. I think we're gonna overall gonna keep an eye on Matt Mervis right now. Shame on the Cubs if we really do not bring this incredible staple back in a Cubs jersey next year. And unless we bring in someone else behind the plate who we feel can fill that role, whatever. But to a certain extent, you got to understand who a franchise player is. Wilson is a franchise player. And if we really want to talk about competing next year, what better guy on this team understands what it means aside from Hendricks next year? What are we doing? This is one of those players where it's he you look at like Yadier Molina or Joey Votto on their respective teams. This is a player who I think he brings so much more than just how talented he is. And so, I hope they keep him around. I know that they're really looking into, parting ways with him in the offseason. Shame on them. I think that's stupid. Um, favorite Wilson moment. I don't know if I can point to one, man. Oh gosh, his first home run at Wrigley Field.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the most electric moments I've ever seen in my life. Um, I don't know when he told John Lester to pick off at first base. I forgot who was running. Was it Colton Wong at first base when he
I
was on
think
the
it was.
Cardinals?
Yeah. I think it was. Yeah.
At the Cubs convention when Wilson just when he just honestly let out what he told John Lester at the kids interview, that was hilarious. When I was at the game last week when he almost took the bullpen catcher's head off when he was rehabbing and then threw it into the crowd and almost took a fan's head off. That's another one of my favorite moments. Gosh, there's so many other moments that I'm not pointing out. So many World Series moments that he had. God, there's Wilson he's been a treasure. He's been a treasure not just for the Cubs but for baseball. Um, he's the man. He's the man. He's one of my favorite players. So obviously I can go off about it, but there's so many Wilson moments that I could point to, and it'd be a true shame if we parted ways with him. It really would be.
But I definitely agree with you when it comes to like Contreras. Like, I mean, yeah, realistically, if you want to compete next year, it's probably going to be better if he's on the team. Um, but I don't know. I just feel like they're probably going to end up like, yeah, letting him go for the compensation pick. I just think they that's what they were probably eyeing, to be honest, because they weren't able to get any type of return at the deadline. Um, but you know what? If they keep him, I would be really happy, and if they did that, so hopefully they're able to figure something out. But I've kind of come to terms with it at this point, so hopefully, um, Cubs are able to convince me that they did the right decision on whatever they do. So, but when it comes to my favorite Contreras moment, man, yeah, you're right in the sense of it's so hard to pick one, because that first his first career home run was electric, against the Pirates, but I think for me, it's probably going to end up being one of two. It's either going to be his All-Star game home run in 2018. It's funny because they're actually both All-Star game ones. In 2018, he had a home run in the All-Star game. That was pretty cool. And then also, just dude, this year, the All-Star game with his brother William. I mean, that's one of the coolest moments in baseball history for me ever. Like, just like for me, like watching baseball, that's one of the most badass things. Like we've seen brothers all the time, but to start in the same All-Star game as your brother and something like that's awesome, man. So um that will definitely be one of the ones that I look back at for sure. Kind of moving out a little bit, I did see that Frank Schwindel has a new home. He found a new home in the Dominican Republic, man. He's playing for the Águilas Cibeñas of the Dominican Winter League. So Frank the Tank lives on in a different country. And I will say he looks good in the threads. He's wearing like these yellow jerseys. So wish him nothing but the best, Frank the Tank. I hope he goes. Honestly, because the ESPN shows like they showed Korean baseball or whatever, and
Yeah,
it'd be cool if Frank goes over there. Plays in Asia or like stuff.
that'd be awesome.
I know,
Let the
right?
swish go everywhere, man.
For real. Um, but yeah, other than that, the Cubs do play two more against the Phillies as they try to play spoiler. Unfortunately, playing spoiler in this case means helping the Brewers, but the Brewers weren't able to help themselves last night after the Cubs beat the Phillies. So hopefully the Cardinals will just get the job done. Just that way, the Cubs don't help the Brewers in that case. We have we actually, we end the season with 6 straight against the Cincinnati Reds, 3 this weekend, 3 next week at Cincinnati. As I said before, Miles for sure is going to be at game 3. I will be at game 1 this weekend, and maybe Miles will too. That's TBD. But hopefully, at bat takes over this weekend series at Wrigley for the last one of the season. So hopefully the Cubs are able to reach 70 when we're there.
You're right there, boys. You're right there. Come on.
All right, and then around the league, we'll touch on a couple things. Albert Pujols, man, hit number 700. I mean, dude, that was another thing too. Just kind of seeing that, it was magical. I mean, and the fact that
The machine.
yeah, the machine, and the fact that he hit 2 home runs in a game to do it, and dude, it was. I mean, the Dodgers. The funniest part. The funniest part. I don't know if you saw. There's a clip of Dave Roberts on the bench. This dude, like, either one of two things: either he's just celebrating for his boy Pujols, or he forgot that Pujols wasn't playing for the Dodgers anymore. Because he was like sitting there, and then he sees Pujols at home, like hit the ball, and he's just like, and then he kind of like gets up, and then he like kind of like brings him back himself back down to be like, oh yeah, that was against us. He's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
it was cool though, because it was like he became a fan for a sec, and then he
yeah.
remembered, oh crap, that was against us. He hit that against us. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, what did you think about the home run and just like the whole celebration and the fact that the Dodgers the fact that it happened to the Dodgers too, where his former team, also one of his former teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think about that?
Legendary, amazing. 700. That's amazing to say that we were able to witness that, and then it's incredible. And what was it, Adrian Beltre that he went to after he touched home plate?
I'm not sure if he went, or I don't remember if he went straight to him, but I did see Adrian Beltre there, so it could have been, yeah, it could
Yeah,
have been, yeah.
the support, basically, the support
Hmm.
that he has, and what he means to baseball. It's just incredible. And I'm gonna be honest with you, he's had a very solid season with the
Hmm.
Cardinals.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's incredible. So this is amazing. This is one of my favorite players. He made me cry as a kid whenever he'd come to Wrigley and hurt us. Um, so thank you for that. So it's one of those players you grow up with. He's basically been playing baseball my entire life. So it's cool. It's cool to see that, and I could not have happened to a better person. I also hope he gets the ball. I really hope he gets the ball.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And it's funny because, yeah, like, uh, he hasn't gotten the ball yet, but the fact that he said that the fan could keep it, I thought was look. I know. Me personally, I hope he gets it some way or another as well, just because it's cool, like to
yeah,
have that, obviously.
yeah.
Um, But the fact that he did say that he doesn't necessarily care that if he gets it back, that the like baseball is for the fans and stuff like that. I thought that was kind
Yeah,
of cool. I thought that was kind of cool in the sense of like nobody really else says that. Like nobody usually I feel like everyone wants the ball. But
yeah,
yeah, but selfishly speaking, not that I am Pujols, but I want him to have the ball. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But speaking of other valuable baseballs that are going to be in the air, Judge has still not gotten 62, let alone 61. He's at 60, starting to sweat a little bit, dude. I'm watching those games. And I don't care about the Yankees, but I'm watching those games like, and I'm like, mood. I'm getting a little nervous for him.
Hey, I think we're coming under the wire a little bit now, and teams aren't pitching to him
Yeah, they don't.
either.
Nope.
What is wrong with you? Throw the baseball.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, this is we're getting a little close now, and um I think he's sort of had a little bit of a hard time in that Red Sox series, so I think
Hmm.
he's starting to feel it. So hopefully he's able to get it going. I really hope he gets he first of all pitch to him. Hope he has an at bat in the first place. Uh yeah, we're getting a little close there. So we'll see. We'll see. Still has time. Still has plenty of at bats, but coming down to the wire a little bit.
Yeah, it's bogus, dude. Like, just throw at him. I don't get. Look. The way I see it is like, don't like wouldn't I don't know. Look, I get that an earned run as a pitcher, especially if you're a young pitcher out there, is going to affect not only your future salary or whatever. So I get it in that standpoint. But also, it's like, what do you want to be part like of his? Like, if your team's out of it, I understand if you're in a pennant race, you're the Blue Jays, you don't want to lose a game or whatever. Sure, but if you let's say, like for example, the Red Sox, like, wouldn't you want to be part of history? Like, just go at him. But what's the worst that can happen? Best case scenario, you strike him out, right? Worst case, or sorry, yeah, best case scenario, you strike him out. Worst case, you're part of history forever. So I don't know. I for like what, and not even in a bad way. Nobody's ever gonna. Does anybody really like? I mean, they don't really. I think it's like I think his last name was Bassett. See, I can't even remember his full name, but the guy who gave up Bonds' a home run
Oh
since
yeah.
1966. I
No
think
one's
I
mad
think
at
it
the
was
pitcher. No one makes fun of the pitcher.
exactly. I know that's what I'm saying. Like
You
no
gave
one's
up a
ever
home run to
yeah.
one of the greatest of all time. Ha
Yeah.
ha.
Exactly. No,
What?
yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm like, dude, just throw. And look, I get it in the sense of like, I'm pretty sure the Red Sox are probably like, hey, we don't want this to happen against us, like big rivalry, blah 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 blah.
Grow
But
up.
yeah,
Grow up.
exactly.
We
Just throw
know
the
what
ball
this
down the
rivalry
middle.
means.
Yes,
Don't be petty.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm sure that's, I bet you like so much that that has something to do with it too, just because, just Red Sox
Yeah.
Yankees, man.
I have more
So
respect for the pitcher if they just go at him.
exactly,
I have
yes,
way
a
more
hundred
respect for the
percent, a
pitcher
hundred
that just
percent,
goes at
yeah.
him. The pitcher that is like, let me dance around the zone on
Yep,
four straight pitches. I won't say it on the
exactly.
podcast, but yeah.
I agree. No, I agree. But besides that, season's winding down. And clinches galore, man. Cleveland, like we said, clinched the Central. Um, the Yankees clinched the East, and the Cardinals clinched the uh the Central.
Yeah.
So clinches coming, down the wire, and still races that have not been settled. I mean, the Mets and Braves are still tied
Yeah.
at the top. That one's gonna go down to the wire as well.
Braves
With
caught fire.
with the fate of our first episode predictions in in the hands of the Braves, because we said Braves are gonna win the East. So
Yeah.
hopefully, they can get it done just for just
Come on, Braves.
in
Don't
the
make me look
right, that's what I'm thinking. And then
bad.
the Dodgers also clinched, obviously, but that's been, I mean, that's, they're gonna win like 110 games. So
Yeah. MLB the show.
um yeah, yeah, it's legit a video game. The Astros obviously clinched because they're again also
Also, MLB the show.
just 18 up. Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
video game teams. And the Cardinals, they clinched yesterday. And the Brewers, they're really close to not making the postseason. So they got to
Oh
really,
my gosh.
they're also hanging by a thread. So they unfortunately need us to beat the Phillies, which I want us to beat the Phillies, but not for the sake of the Brewers, but for the sake of wins and losses. But
Yeah.
we'll see that they'll definitely be fun to watch in general. But yeah, that'll basically do it for this episode of the At Bat Baseball podcast. Next week we'll come back with hopefully a postseason preview. We'll see how we figure it out. We'll post it on our socials to see what exactly we're going to do. Best case scenario, we release an episode on Wednesday. I know the season ends on Wednesday. Every team starts at 3:10 p.m. Central Time. So we'll see what happens for sure. But for Saul Rodriguez, Miles Porter, and of War Media, see you next week, guys.